If you would please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We're going to start with a good news report, Deanne.
Good evening. We have a school spotlight this evening featuring Pettigrew Elementary. That is our southwesternmost school in the Sioux Falls School District with an enrollment right around 800. And the principal and some friends are here this evening, Kevin Dick, to share some of the latest that they've been working on in their buildings. So I'll let him explain. Kevin.
Sorry, just testing something out.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Kevin Dick. I'm the principal at Pettigrew Elementary. I'm joined by assistant principal here, Jennifer Walden, instructional coach Heidi Reynolds, and then some of our dedicated staff members here at Pettigrew Elementary. And tonight we want to highlight Pettigrew Elementary for you and just tell you a little bit about an exciting adventure that we've been on for the last 2.25, nearly 3 years at Pettigrew. And as was mentioned, Pettigrew, one of the largest elementary schools in the district and in the state. It's located on the far southwest corner of the district, and it has a student body of 786 students in the kindergarten through 5th. We also add another 127 early childhood children for a total of about 913 students. The learning of these students is supported by over 100 full-time and shared staff in our building. And we have an active, vibrant, engaged school community with high expectations for our students and for ourselves. For the past 3 years, supported by 3 consecutive grants from the Sioux Falls Public School Foundation, their Public School Proud grant program, we have been able to, the Pettigrew teachers have been able to be teaching the mindsets that you see displayed here in their classrooms. Each one of our classroom teachers have access to a rich online comprehensive curriculum that each week focuses on one of the 23 learning objectives that's listed and that are embedded in one of the 7 mindsets that we're studying for that particular month. So for the month of October, we were looking at everything is possible, and each one of the weeks then focused on one of those learning objectives. Because we were on a 3-year path, this allowed us to work with the students in each section going through. So year 1 was addressed in kindergarten and 3rd grade, and so they were able to work in the remembering and understanding phase of this program. Year 2 was grades 1 and 4, and they were able to focus on the applying and analyzing stage of this program. And then year 3, we were able to, in grades 2 and 5, move on into evaluating and creating with the content of the 7 mindsets. We were able to put together a video that highlights our staff and our students and some of the things we've been able to enjoy as part of our 7 mindsets. And then as this is playing for you, I'm going to do a little narration here as well through the video just to show you or to explain what the students were trying to encapsulate in their parts of the video, as well as highlight just a little bit of data that was able to be collected last year in our work here that as we were focusing on some of the outcomes that we were able to achieve through our 7 mindsets. So cross your fingers, here goes technology. just have support in education. We have a lot of it here, so we'll get it figured out. Yeah, I'm gonna make another way around it, you know. I'm sure.
I'm just glad I'm not the only one. Like, where are our kids when we need them? Because they
I
are the
know,
ones that
right?
would
We'll
come
get a
up and
high
they would
school
have
kid,
this done. And
We'll get a fourth grader up here and they'll,
that's right.
they'll do it this way. There we go. Awesome. Okay. All right. So our video is going to show the 7 mindsets, and then, like I mentioned, a little bit of data. Start with our kindergarten classes and the mindset that speaks about everything is possible. To signify that everything is possible, our kindergartners made and are wearing graduation hats that show the class of 2036 when they'll graduate from high school. They're also wearing their purple pause shirts, and for data collection, the statement we asked students of K-5 was to respond to the mindset, it is okay to make mistakes. Our responses increased from fall to spring last year by 7.4%. Ben Schumacher showing off his new toys here too. This is one of his, this is a drone flying through Pettigrew School. And so this is, we had to train our kids, make sure you don't put your fingers in the drone. That would not lend itself to great mindset education. Our first grade classes exhibited the mindset of being 100% accountable. They made signs to signify that they're accountable as they waved their pom-poms to celebrate their accountability. The statement for 100% accountable was, I am responsible for my actions, and our responses increased 3.7% from fall to spring last year. Our second grade classes were showing that we are all connected by joining arms in a large group, and also made some signs to show how they're connected to the community. We asked students to respond to the statement, I like people who are different than me, and the favorable responses increased by 4.6% over the course of the school year. Live to Give is a mindset that the third grade has chosen to show us, and they're showing several ways they've exhibited this generosity as they hosted bracelet and t-shirt sales for Pettigrew students who are battling cancer, had lemonade sales at school and at home that raised funds for these same families, and also participated in the Poinsettia project that gives warm gear to the families that need it for the winter. The statement our students considered was, "I do nice things for people." Their responses indicated an increase of 4.2%. Fourth grade chose to exhibit passion first as they brought in items that showed their hobbies and other areas of interests and passion. We asked students to respond, "I stand up for what I believe in," and our responses increased by 4.3%. Fifth grade showed off the attitude of gratitude as they sat in a heart-shaped outline and showed their continued gratitude to the Pettigrew community. Our students responded to the statement, "I tell people that I care about them," and their responses increased by 5.2%. And we concluded with our staff as we think about the mindset of the time is now. The time is now to realize all our students' full potential when we study and exhibit these 7 mindsets. The students considered the statement, "I help make the world better," and their responses fall to spring increased by 2.3%. So in summary, as shown on this slide, the statements we asked students to consider showed an increase in each of the 7 areas we discussed with them in each one of these 7 mindsets. We're very proud of our students and the work they've done in the past 2.25 years in the areas of 7 mindsets. And as you can see, the data is in front of you there again, the increase that they responded to from fall to spring with their responses. Thanks for letting us share about this. It's been a great ride, and it's been fun to see how the teachers implemented the lessons and the students really came alive with their responses to the activities and to the questions that we asked them. Are there any questions that you would have for me, or feel free to pick on any one of my faithful staff members seated, but as you notice, they stayed seated behind me. Here.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Always love seeing highlights from our schools, so thank you.
I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
Some people would say that this is fluff and that this is not our central purpose, but we know that this is what supports that. Talk about the relationship of initiatives like this and how that supports your academic goals.
Okay. One thing I think is interesting to think about is when Pettigrew opened 14 years ago, it was focused on social and emotional learning. Their mind, the focus that they had and the statement that they chose for their mission statement talks about first addressing social and emotional before it even gets to the academic piece and the academic goals I have. And I've always have responded, we've always talked to students and staff about that order and that response that we feel that we have, and has been evident at Pettigrew ever since it began. There's been different programs that have implemented that, from responsive classroom. We're working hard with PBIS right now and some of the work that goes along with that, and Seven Mindsets has fused in nicely with both of those programs. But yeah, to have a student feel safe and to have them feel that they're socially accepted and that they have a positive environment to learn in, that's the first ground rules that we really try to establish before we look at that academic work we can do with them there. So.
Thank you. I was just going to add that we oftentimes hear about our public school proud grants going to a teacher or a grade. And I think this is the first time that I've seen it highlighted for like an entire school. And I think it's amazing to think that the money that our donors are providing to us, and then to collectively get together as a group and decide that you're all committed to this, and then to look at every single face that we saw in the school and what a difference those donations make. And so I'm pretty sure that it's open now, right? Grants are, I want to say the application is open now.
Yeah, and Pettigrew will be at the table again. But maybe not for quite as much. We've had, this was a very significant grant for 3 years in a row that was awarded here. The hard work and heavy lifting was done by our instructional coach, Heidi Reynolds. She did a lot of the work, but as an instructional coach, as a teacher, they are able to do that, but she wanted to share it with her whole community. And so it was really a community-wide effort, although it was a lot of work to write and secure that grant. So it's been fun to help her spend her money.
And you consider the impact that it's made to the current 900 students, but there's students who have left, who have taken the things with them as well. And so just another testament to our community and their generosity, and then obviously our willingness of our staff to say, I'm going to do more than just teach kids. I'm going to really teach them life skills and make them important parts of our school community. So thank you for your presentation, and for all of you guys to your commitment to your students as well. So it really makes a big difference. Thank you for coming. All right. And you guys do not have to stay. We will not be offended. So if you want to sneak out, you sure can. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the meetings held on 10/23 and 11/1, please?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. I do have some people who want to address the school board, and I believe they're all non-agenda items. So we have two separate topics. So I'm just going to really quickly, since we do have some new people come, this portion of the agenda is available for individuals wishing to address the board about a district-related subject. Anyone that wants to must sign up in advance, which they've already done. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, regardless of the number of subjects the person wants to cover. If multiple individuals sign up to speak on the same topic, the total amount is limited to 15 minutes. And then just remembering that when you come to the podium, please state your name and your address. You cannot give oral complaints regarding district personnel or personnel actions. Those should be addressed to the superintendent in private or in writing. No personal attacks about anybody, no oral complaints identifying individual students or complaints regarding individual staff members. They are, again, to be addressed with the superintendent. So I'm going to start with, there's a group of 4 people who are all on the same topic. Did you guys have a plan? You each get about 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Is there an order that you wanted to go in? Yeah. Who would like to go first? And you are? Okay. So we have Laura first. Perfect. And Kate will have a timer, so we don't have our little number on a stick, but we'll get
Thank you.
a warning. So,
Just making sure it works so everyone can hear
Alright.
it.
go ahead. Thank you.
So my name is Laura Rohde, and I live at 840 West 9th Street. And our daughter Parker grew up in the Sioux Falls School District. She's in the Spanish Immersion Program and is currently a middle schooler at Edison. Thank you for being involved in what you do, because she has an amazing education experience. So the reason I'm here is because in the middle of two of Sioux Falls' most densely populated neighborhoods, there is a green space with a large community garden on it. And in May 2022, the city of Sioux Falls considered placing homes on the green space. But then when the neighbors heard about this, they came forward and said all the reasons that this green space needed to stay a green space, and the plans for housing were paused. And we are here today to ask the school board to publicly declare the former site of Lincoln Elementary School available. And I'm one of 4 neighbors who will be sharing the reasons that we need this green space to remain a green space, but we're not alone. If anyone here who wants to support the green space becoming an official park, please stand. Over the next 15 minutes, we're going to share a history of this green space, the neighborhood connection to this land, the density and the need for this land to become an official park, and community benefits of having a park. But first, for a little background, some of you might be wondering, why is there a 1-block green space in the middle of Sioux Falls' 2 most densely populated neighborhoods? And the reason is Lincoln Elementary. In 1889, one of Sioux Falls' first elementary schools was built on this property. And for the next 117 years, it became a place of learning, and its land and playground, a place where children and neighbors gathered before and after school and in the summers, which is so essential to this neighborhood because along with being one of the most densely populated neighborhoods, nearly half of all neighbors live in multifamily housing with little or no access to green space. So for 117 years, this was Lincoln Elementary. And then in 1998, Lincoln Elementary closed its doors, and in 2006, the school district decided they didn't need the building anymore, so they tore down the building and left us with this large, wonderful green space, and a community garden went in, which was also really important because this land is on the edge of Sioux Falls' largest food desert. And then the green space, it continued to be utilized by neighbors, and we want to thank you because for more than a century, the school district has allowed the land to fill an essential need for public green space in this neighborhood. I talk to families all the time who utilize this space because it is their only access to green space. A student at Washington High School, her name is Rosie. This is where she practices her color guard. This is where she learned how to cartwheel because she lives in an apartment with no access to green space. And the reason we're asking you, the school board, to make this land publicly announce that this land is available is that for 18 months, a group of volunteers have met with all stakeholders, and most stakeholders, I will say. And in a meeting with the Sioux Falls Parks Department, they said, we will make this an official park so that you don't have to worry about it being taken away if 2 things happen. 1, the school district makes the land available, and 2, the administration is on board. Well, we know that we have many city council members on board, so we need the school board and we need your support to publicly declare the former site of Lincoln Elementary School is available. And you all have packets of information, and I would like to call my friend Mary Glenski up to speak next.
When my family moved to Sioux Falls.
I'm going to stop you 1 second. I'm sorry. Will you just say your name and address, please?
I beg your pardon?
Can you just say your name and your address for us,
Oh, I'm
please?
sorry.
That's okay.
Mary Glinsky, 632 West 9th Street. When my family moved to Sioux Falls in 1965, the whole area where we lived was zoned for apartments because it was relatively close to downtown. And when we became the first historic district in South Dakota in 1974, we were pleased that the city changed our zoning to single family and grandfathered in those places that were multiple apartments. Most of our 8 boys went to kindergarten at Lincoln Elementary, but they were disappointed when the grade school was closed, and particularly when the playground equipment was moved to a different school. It was always a great place to fly kites, and to enjoy the green space without having to cross busy streets or go the three-quarters of a mile to the playground in Terrace Park. So the neighborhood appreciates that the school district understands the importance of this green space to our particular area, since we are one of the most dense areas in the city of Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Hansen, and I reside at 115 South Prairie Avenue. I'm proud to say that I have 4 children that have and continue to attend 6 different schools in the Sioux Falls district. And so I'd like to thank you for the work you do on this board and for the betterment of our students. This evening, I want to focus on the need that we have for a park at the previous site of Lincoln Elementary due to our neighborhood's dense population and our current access to city parks. Our city thoughtfully has put forth a standard that they would like each of their residents to be within a half a mile of a park. And if you'd like to refer to your folder, there's 3 maps. The first map shows what a half-mile radius from Terrace Park looks like. Unfortunately, my home, as well as the homes of our 3 other speakers this evening, and 424 other parcels lies outside of that half-mile radius. And so as a result, there is not a park within a safe walking distance of my home and for my children. However, if you look at the second map, that is what the half-mile radius from the current green space where the Lincoln Elementary School once stood would look like. And this would include over 1,600 housing units, and nearly half of those are multifamily. Our neighborhood has many apartment buildings and multifamily units that have no access to green space on their property. And it is vital for them to be able to utilize this space that has been public for over a century, that they have come to know as a place that they are allowed to go. You could also note just even our single family lot size is much smaller than most in our city, and as a result it yields small and sometimes non-existent yards. So even our single family homes don't have the luxury of playground equipment in their own backyard or a place where they can shoot baskets and things like that. The third map is just kind of as a point of reference for another neighborhood that is serviced by Lewis Park. In this area, they have 600 fewer housing units than we do in our neighborhood, and of those, only 57 are multifamily. It just further demonstrates the density of our neighborhood and our great need for the maintenance of a green space, not only for the children in our neighborhood, but for the adults as well. My 2 youngest boys are here this evening. They're 11 and 13, and they routinely walk to the Lincoln Green Space with neighborhood friends to walk our dog, play football and baseball, or ride their bike. And they are utilizing this space as much as they possibly can for what it is, which is right now a blank slate. And so that is why our need for an established and neighborhood park at the former Lincoln Elementary is so great. And so we're here tonight to let you know that we need your support, and we need the school board to publicly declare that the former site of Lincoln Elementary is available. And I thank you so much for your time this evening and for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Johnson Keckler. I live at 101 North Prairie Avenue, which is about 3 blocks from the former site of Lincoln Elementary. I had the privilege to have married into a family that my father-in-law, Jim Keckler, retired as assistant principal at Lincoln High School, and my mother-in-law, Rita Keckler, was a teacher and a librarian and school secretary at former Longfellow Elementary that is no longer there. But and all of the siblings in that family went, of course, to schools here in Sioux Falls. So our son, my husband Scott, and my son graduated from Lincoln High School. So we're empty nesters now, but nevertheless, where we live, it has become very obvious to us that kids in our neighborhood need a place to go to play. And when we lost, so when our neighborhood, didn't have a neighborhood elementary school anymore, some of the things that we were reminded of the importance of what that a neighborhood elementary school gives to you in a neighborhood is it's a place where adults, parents meet each other and would maybe not otherwise get a chance to do that. They can form relationships with each other. Also, it's a place where older people, retirees, can go and be invited to events. They can be around younger kids, see, maybe there's a Veterans Day event, or there's the recital, or things that are going on and the neighborhood's invited to attend. So, and also it's a place where kids after school and on weekends have a safe place to go play. And when those things aren't there, there's just that empty need there. And why we are so passionate about this as a neighborhood is that, my kids are out of my house now, but there are so many other kids in the neighborhood that we recognize we need to advocate for them. And we want to reestablish kind of that connection in our neighborhood through having a park at this site, so that kids have a safe place to play, so that adults can get together, so older and retirees can walk and exercise, be around young people and that energy that's really important, but also have a meeting place for people in the neighborhood. We can have events, the community garden, things like that. So we're very passionate about it. We really we're advocating for our neighborhood and our community and the kids that live there, especially kids that are in rentals and apartment buildings that have no place to go that's safe. The sidewalk is not a safe place to ride your bike. It's just not. We are lots of busy streets through our neighborhood. And so we're here to ask you to please publicly state that the site is available so that we can move forward and work with the city to make this a park. And I want to announce that we have already a commitment of $100,000 from an anonymous donor to move this forward, to get this done. But we need your help. We're here for the long haul, and we really care about the kids and the families in our neighborhood, and we'll hope that you will partner with us to make this happen. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. All right, we have one other speaker. And so that 5-minute time frame will reset for our next speaker. Chad, if you want to come on up and state your name and address for us, please.
Good evening. My name is Chad Bishop, and I reside at 7405 South Valencia Drive here in Sioux Falls. Tonight, I'd like to address the district's hiring practices and the question of gender representation within our staff. I have heard our district staff members state repeatedly in this forum that a principal goal of the district is to have a demographic composition of your staff more accurately reflect the demographics of the students you serve. A cynical person might ask if that is true. I'm not a cynical person. I have asked before how you intend to accomplish this without violating the law. I would draw your attention to the recent Supreme Court decision, Students for Fair Admissions Incorporated versus University of North Carolina, where the race-based admissions to higher education were struck down as a component of affirmative action. I highly recommend you read Justice Thomas's concurring opinion. Here's an excerpt. The solution to our nation's racial problems thus cannot come from policies grounded in affirmative action or some other conception of equity. Racialism simply cannot be undone by different or more racialism. Instead, the solution announced in the second founding is incorporated in our Constitution, that we are all equal and should be treated equally before the law without regard to our race. Only that promise can allow us to look past our differing skin colors and identities and see each other for what we truly are, individuals with unique thoughts, perspectives, and goals, but with equal dignity and equal rights under the law. This was written by an African-American man who grew up in the Jim Crow South and rose to sit on the highest court in the land. Our district rightly values transparency and frequently reports on the racial demographics of our student body and educational staff. Yet there seems to be a gap in the reporting of gender demographics. Take, for example, the staff composition of the HR department as depicted in this team picture of their annual staffing report. There is a noticeable lean towards female representation. To be precise, 12 of 13 appear to be female. If I were Ibram X. Kendi, I might argue that this simple disparity is definitive evidence of systemic discrimination against males. I bring this up not because I agree that this is evidence of discrimination, but as a starting point for a broader conversation on how we approach the hiring process. I have spent over 1,000 hours in the Sioux Falls School District's elementary school classrooms. In all 3 tours through 6 classrooms, the teachers were all female, the librarian female, the music teacher female, even the gym teachers eventually female. Not that there's anything wrong with that. This experience does not, however, lead me to conclude definitively that this is evidence of systemic discrimination within our district against male teachers. On the contrary, I find the words of Thomas Sowell in his book, Social Justice Fallacies, to be particularly salient. Because of reciprocal inequalities, quote, because of reciprocal inequalities, the more narrowly defined the endeavor, the less likely are different groups to be comparably represented. Yet crusaders for social justice often decry uneven representations of groups in an individual company as evidence of proof of employer discrimination in that particular company or school district. When different peoples evolve differently in very different settings and conditions, they can develop different talents and that create different reciprocal inequalities of achievements in a wide range of endeavors without necessarily creating equality or even comparability in any of those endeavors. Such reciprocal inequalities lend no support to theories of either genetic determinism or discriminatory biases as automatic explanations of inequalities. Many assumptions and phrases in the social justice literature are repeated endlessly without any empirical test. When women are statistically underrepresented in Silicon Valley, for example, some people automatically assume that to be due to sex discrimination by Silicon Valley employers. It so happens that the work done in Silicon Valley is based on an application of engineering skills, including computer software engineering. And American women receive less than 30% of the degrees in engineering, whether at the college level or postgraduate level. When American men receive less than 20% of the undergraduate degrees in education and only 22% or 32% of master's degrees and doctoral degrees respectively in that same subject, is it surprising that men are underrepresented among school teachers and women are underrepresented in engineering occupations? This perspective from Mr. Sowell reminds us that disparities in representation can be reflective of broader societal and educational trends rather than direct evidence of discriminatory practices. In pursuit of educational excellence, I urge the continued focus on merit in our hiring practices. This approach ensures that our students receive the highest quality education from the most qualified individuals. Thank you for your time and your dedication to our students' futures.
Thank you. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. We have no conflicts of interest this evening. Can I get a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. Can I get a motion and a second for the supplemental consent agenda A 1 through 3 for the Sanford Health?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That passes with 1 abstention from myself. And supplemental consent agenda B1. Can I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion passes. And on to the reports of the superintendent.
We have a few different things to cover this evening. The first is going to be the budget timeline. It's already getting to be that season when we'll start looking at our process for how we develop the budget for the 24-25 school year. I can hardly say that. Seems like that used to be a long time ago, and now it's here. The second thing is we're going to review the proposed 23-24 Sioux Falls School District legislative priorities document. This is the document that we put together that just kind of highlights the areas of priority for the district. This year, we're not looking at having something specifically carried, but it shows some of the areas that we're particularly watching as legislation is proposed and some of the things that are ongoing in terms of how that supports public education in South Dakota. And then the third item that we have is a public hearing for some of the 2024 capital improvement projects, which lets us get going on the big processes that support those projects in our district. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Veek, who will cover A and B, and I may also weigh in just a little bit on B.
Thank you. As Dr. Saban said, tonight officially kicks off our FY25 budget season, where we're going to ask you to approve the budget timeline. The next board meeting, we will come in and have you look at the schedule or the guidelines and how the budget preparers will prepare their budget. So we'll bring that back on 11/27. Then other key dates on here. By December 1st, we'll develop enrollment projections. They're very key to the budgeting. They drive all the staffing at the grade levels. So that'll be done on December 1st. Number 8 there. By January 5th, we'll ask our budget preparers to turn in their budget that will show us if we do next year what we're doing this year, what it will cost us to operate the budget. So we'll have that nailed down so we can look at how it fits with our 5-year plan and have that locked in, make that pretty definite, what it's going to look like and whether or not we can look for expansions or we're going to have to cut or what. On March 1st, all budgets are due. That's the general fund, the special education fund, food service fund, the insurance trust fund, and all the other enterprise funds. So those are due on March 1st. Then on March 7th, that's the last day of the main run of the legislature. So we will lock in our preliminary revenue budget. So much of our budget depends on what state aid is. And usually by that last day, you have a really good idea what that's going to be. So that's when we'll kind of lock in our preliminary numbers anyway for the revenue. Then on the 14th, the K through 12 Budget Review Committee will meet and establish recommended program levels. That includes central administrators from each building, teachers, or not each building, each level, teachers from each level, special ed teachers as well, and then 2 board members, President Ryder and Vice President Murrin, are on that committee as well. So we're going to meet on the 14th and make a recommendation for the full board. And then the full board will meet in the first of 2 public work sessions on 3/27, that's a Wednesday, March 27th. And then the next week, you'll kind of form your questions or any other thing you want us to research after that first presentation. We'll come back and meet on that on April 3rd. And then hopefully kind of wrap that up. And then on the first regular meeting of April on the 8th, we'll bring the budget to a public hearing, and that'll include the superintendent's message, and then we'll have hopefully a tentative adoption of the budget. And if we need to reduce force, that will happen that night too, based on what we do with the budget. And then on the 8th of July, which is the annual meeting for the school board for FY25, we will adopt the budget and certify the levies to the auditors at that time. So that's the timeline. It's pretty similar to last year, just the dates have changed to match up to the calendar a little bit. Any questions on that? If there aren't any, the recommendation is that you approve the FY25 budget timeline as presented.
Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
A motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That is approved.
And then on to the next one about our legislative priorities. If you'll recall that on November 1st at our November work session, we discussed among other things, the legislative priorities. And, oh yeah. So we discussed these at our work session, and we kind of narrowed it down to 2 or 3 big issues, and then some other issues as well. So one of those is well-being, and I'll talk about that in a second. The second is the effective use of resources and staff excellent, and then the third item was other areas of consideration. So briefly, under well-being and juvenile justice, we're advocating for continued work to improve the effectiveness of diversionary programs through increased funding, equitable distribution of the dollars to follow the need, and improvement of existing facilities in consideration for growing new programs to meet the statewide demand for dealing with juveniles involved in significant criminal activity. It's kind of been on our radar for the last 3 or so years, and nothing has really changed, I guess, so it's still an issue. And then also under well-being, under school safety and security and supports for significant behavioral and mental health needs, our statement is that schools nationwide in South Dakota continue to see an increase in the number of students who require significant interventions for behavioral and mental health needs. At this time, many districts do not have the resources necessary to provide the level of interventions that are necessary. As a result, classrooms, schools, and staff are faced with significant needs that outpace what is available and appropriate in the school setting, and it's jeopardizing a positive learning environment. So the legislature, we believe, really needs to look at that issue, and it kind of fits right there with the juvenile justice issue as well. And that's the well-being area of our legislative priorities. Add anything to that? No. And then under district, the priority, effective use of resources and staff excellent. We talk about state aid and teacher compensation. I know you've all heard me say this before. Oh, board has heard me say this before, but hopefully there's people listening that haven't. 80%, over 80% of all schools in the state, their non-federal revenue, and so it's your discretionary revenue, comes from the state aid formula, and it's over 80%. And then over 80% of their general fund expenditures are on salaries and benefits, and most of those are on teachers. So when we talk about the state aid formula being 3% or inflation, whichever is less, we're seeing that the minimum wage in the state went up over 5% last year. And so we're looking at 3%. Inflation's over 3%. So next year we're looking at 3%. And we're saying, well, if we year in and year out or over a period of time, if we continue to get 3% or inflation, whichever is less, and we didn't the last 2 years, we kept up with inflation or came close to keeping up with inflation. But if we follow the formula this year, we won't. If we get that, we are not going to be able to keep up with the rest. And so we also looked at, this is a year when the Teacher Compensation Board review met, and we kind of looked at we looked at their draft report, and some of the data they're making decisions off of is kind of inaccurate, it seems like to us. The report estimated an FY teacher salary increase of 1.5%, and the actual teacher salary, that was when they were meeting and just making the decisions they were making. The real increase was 5.2, and we got 6% from the state. So you would expect that to be, but people initially say, we gave you 6%, you only gave 1.5. What are you doing with all that money? Well, they were going off of wrong information. Another thing is that report also looked at, and we kind of found this interesting. It did a comparison of what teachers make compared to the private workforce, but it compared it nationally, our teachers to a national number, and we have a nice. Our Department of Labor has a nice statistical unit, and they produce pretty good stats. And so we looked at that. So we looked back to when they passed the half-cent sales tax increase for FY17. What was the growth since then? What's it been? And what's the growth been in state aid? What's it been in teachers' salaries? And what has the private workforce spent? And state aid has gone up 18.3%. That's a pretty good clip for South Dakota over that period of time. Teacher salaries increases have been up 20.4%. So what schools have actually given to teachers over that period of time has outpaced what they received in state aid. But here's the amazing part. The private workforce, so you take out all the government employees, the private workforce over that period of time has gone up 31.6%. So while the state aid increases have been fairly good, or have been good the last couple of years, we're still not even, we're not even coming up within 2/3 of what the private workforce is doing with their salaries. So South Dakota is going to be competitive within the education and private workforce. Significant funding increases are going to continue to be needed in order to raise the overall profile of educator compensation. And our specific proposal, and it's been that way for a few years, is instead of 3% inflation, whichever is less, it should be 3% or inflation, whichever is greater. And then on other, any
And then,
comments
yeah,
on that?
would you scroll down just a little bit so that they can see that visually just a bit? I think the private workforce isn't something that's seen very often as a comparative. We look at educators to educators, state to state. And, you know, here in South Dakota and in Sioux Falls, we're in the top 5, and we believe we're the 3rd largest employer in Sioux Falls. We're competing against the world of work, whether that's other school districts when we look at who comes and goes, but we're also looking at other opportunities that are out there. Teaching is hard. It always has been. It always will be, because we're working with human beings, which also is what should make it one of the most important jobs that there is. And we know that people come to work in Sioux Falls every single day, and they care deeply about the well-being of our children and the academic growth and pursuits that they are able to have while they're here, as well as what they do beyond. We have a lot of successful people who have gone through our school district over time. But we also have to look at what does that look like in the future now that we can see the direction of workforce that everybody is encountering, including education. And we have to look at what is it going to take to compete both educationally with other school districts as well as in the wider workforce, particularly here in a large urban area. But we can also say the same things for outstate. They're trying just as hard to get people to locate to smaller communities to educate children. All of our children in South Dakota are important. And so we don't want the increases that are necessary to be seen as outliers. They need to become more of the norm if we're going to keep pace and keep moving in a good direction to keep educating kids well in our state. So I just think it's really interesting to look both within education as well as that private workforce comparative. That's important and it's very relevant. I'll just go on to the other areas here just real quick, Todd. The early childhood education and childcare resources, those are 2 very important things, but different things. Early childhood or preschool education is something that our district has advocated for year over year. Childcare has also taken a more prominent role in the narrative recently just due to the needs of that workforce. All of these things are woven together. And so if our teachers are going to find childcare, if our EAs, if our child nutrition staff, if our bankers, if our restaurant workers, if they all are going to find childcare, we have to prioritize those things that help also drive that economic stability factor. The next one, nutrition services support and unpaid meal costs. There's been a lot in the news about this over the last few years. During COVID, as a reminder, the federal government stepped in and said we're going to pay for meals for all students. That lasted for 2 years, and then that was pulled back last year. And even before that, there was a kind of a growing mindset about paying your lunch account. And we had generous community members here and across the nation who would kind of come in and say, well, we're going to wipe this out and help relieve some of that debt for families, which is really helpful, but that also has kind of perpetuated and been part of then a change in mindset about what does that look like for paying your unpaid meals. And so we've tried to navigate between those kind of different variables. We have generous donors who help our families. At the same time, we've advocated for maybe there to be some continuation of that from the federal government with the reauthorization of the Farm Bill. We thought maybe that would come with it, but it hasn't. So we know there's some talk legislatively about should the state then assume that role in how they cover the cost of some measure of meal costs for students. This year, our district has covered the reduced portion, so you're either free or you're not free. And we've done that because we can also receive reimbursement for those meal costs, and so it's less of a debt. So we'll see what happens, but that's a big area to keep an eye on and to see what can be done there to provide some lasting solutions that everybody can live with. Career and tech ed is another important area for students pursuing some of those career pathways and the funding that goes with that for equipment, for programming, as well as teacher certification. It's getting harder and harder to find really qualified people to teach in our career and tech ed pathways because, back to that workforce issue, you can get paid probably a lot more not being a teacher in your chosen trade area than you do as a teacher. And we're trying to pay attention to that, but we also need some flexibility as the state has given and potentially some more in that area to keep those career and tech ed programs well-staffed and well-resourced. And then along with that is just the greater aspect of teacher certification and some flexibility. And this is a tricky one because we also have to maintain the quality of our workforce when it comes to educating children. But there are some things with state-to-state reciprocity, some of the requirements that we have here in South Dakota, some people who join us from other countries to come and teach here in Sioux Falls. We want to make sure that we have a system that can support that flexibility as well as just the timeliness of it. And that was a struggle this year. And so we want to be able to maintain that certification so we keep people coming in the door who can teach our children. And then finally, the ACT for 11th grade students as the state assessment. Right now it's Smarter Balance. We've advocated for this for many years. The relevance of an ACT test compared to Smarter Balance, there's just really no comparison. It's also a door opener for kids. A student who may not either be able to afford it or think that they could take the ACT successfully has that score now in hand and can apply to colleges who consider this as one measure of college admittance. It's certainly not the only one, but it's one aspect of that. What did I miss?
Nothing.
I got on a roll.
What? Yeah. I would just say the administrative recommendation is to approve the 2024 legislative priorities as presented.
Questions or comments?
Question. Can you just correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Sabin?
Sure.
Do people have to have a social security number to do the free and reduced form?
I don't believe so, but I'll defer to you. I don't know what's on that application.
I don't think so, but I would have to ask A. We can get that
Yeah,
information
we can
to
double
you.
check on the components of
Okay,
that form.
there's just been a lot of questions on that, and there's a lot of nervousness to filling that out
Mhm.
because of that component. So I was just hoping to clear that up.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, can I get a motion and a second to approve the 2024 legislative priorities, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is approved. And then we have a public hearing.
Mr. Kreider.
Good evening. We have a one project public hearing tonight, so we'll get right to it. Hope I can get this thing going. This is going to be McGovern Middle School Boys and Girls Club Community Center Addition project. It's kind of exciting project. It's something unique for us. The project will construct a 16,400 square foot addition on the southwest corner of the existing gymnasium. The addition will include offices, classrooms, recreation space, and a gymnasium. And the space will be used for the Boys and Girls Club after-school program and summer program at McGovern. I would imagine they'll probably have even more outreach than that. So Okay, this is kind of a schematic of the project. And as you can see, it sits out right in the corner. The new elementary will be just to the bottom right. And so there's linking sidewalks and drop-offs and everything that will go with it. So we've kind of had this in our planning on both projects. So it'll be very nice. Okay, this project will be bid December. We've got a 10-day waiting period from this public hearing until we can advertise. And then we'll hope to start in spring of 24 with completion in spring of 25. This project will be funded with private donations coordinated through the Boys and Girls Club, Community Learning Center Office, and the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation. And the estimated cost is approximately $6.5 million. That includes site work and professional services as well. Okay, so with that, we'll open it up for any public input that we have.
This is separate from having to sign up prior to, so if you want to speak, you can certainly do so. Just come up to the mic and go ahead. Oh, do we have timing or anything like that? We just talk.
So there's two pieces of this that I find commendable. First, funding through private donation. That's excellent. It shows the community support for education and for the folks that live in that portion of the community in the northwest corner. So I spent 2 years in McGovern as a mentor and would have loved to have a space to go after school. And I think this will be an excellent project and support that portion of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any feedback they would like to provide? No? Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing.
Okay, with that, just ask for a recommendation to acknowledge the public hearing and authorize us to complete the planning process and proceed in the bidding phase. So,
any questions or comments? I would second what Chad said. I think it's great to have really show that partnership, and I think the community understands the value of adding this to that community. They already, it's kind of a barren land out there. It's gotten a lot better, but so many kids, I think everybody rides a bus to get there, and so really having some programming after school will be really impactful for these students. And I know there was an announcement made out there, and they had all the 6th graders in the auditorium because those are the kids who will actually get to use this facility by the time it opens, and they were very excited about the opportunity. So I think it's going to be a really good addition to the neighborhood and especially that school community. So thanks for everybody that had a piece in working on that. Can I get a motion and a second to acknowledge the public hearing and also to authorize the administration to complete the planning process?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That is acknowledged.
thank you.
Thank you.
And
Any other-
Madam President, can I have a moment of privilege?
You bet.
Just to clarify a couple of things. In answer to your question, Board Member Johnson, I believe there is a box to check if they don't have a social security number, and that wouldn't be a reason we wouldn't want somebody to fill out a form. So I think they just indicate on there. Correct. Yep. The other thing I would like to clarify is just from our public comments earlier on the green space on the Lincoln Elementary site. I just want to highlight a couple of things that were said that I think is important for clarity to the public. The first is this is a school district property and has been for many years. The community around it has been allowed to use that property. Community gardens, green space, that is true. The other thing that is accurate is for the two things that would need to happen. One is the sale of the district, and at this point in time, there hasn't been a discussion of selling that property. That would come through our facility planning process. We would follow our regular practices for how we designate and then make that known to the community if the board was to decide that we were going to dispose of that piece of property. And so if the public wanted to know when that was going to happen, that would come through a public board meeting. The second thing that was mentioned was that the city would have to designate it as a park. And I want to make it really clear, the school district does not designate city park space. That's up to the city, and that's what we've provided in terms of information quite a few times to the group that was here. And so we have not had any indication from the city that they desire to acquire or designate this parcel as a city park. If they would be interested in that, we would certainly entertain that, but that has not been something that has been indicated to the district that the city wishes to designate that as a park. So I appreciate the sentiments of the neighborhood. I know that they've enjoyed using that parcel, and that's been a good thing. But I just want to make it clear that I think a little bit has been misleading, that the district is somehow taking away a park that currently exists, and that's not accurate. This is a district parcel. And as we've talked about through many of our facility planning meetings, there's a lot of things that we discuss. At one point, we looked at that as a community campus site, or is there another designation that the district might use that parcel for? It may be that we don't use that, but it's going to be part of the discussions when there's maybe a need to consider because it's an existing piece of property. But we do that through a process, which is our facility planning process. And so I just think it's important for clarity if the group is collecting donations or things like that to have good clarity that at this time, the district has not said that that's going to be a parcel that we're selling in the immediate future in some way. If that's something that the board wants to discuss, again, we would do that through our facility planning. And if any of you want that to be an agenda item, you would make that known to the board president, and then we would consider that to be an agenda item if that was the will of the board. So just wanted to add some clarification there. It's been in the news, it's been on TV, and I think it's just important to add clarity from the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have executive session following this, so if I could get a motion in a second to move into executive session SDCL 1-25-2 parentheses 3 and 2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are in executive session.